guys, and welcome back into the channel. Today we're going to be starting something new here. If you can tell by the shirt, we're going to be going back and reviewing from the big four horror franchises. We're going to be going back and reviewing all the movies from those franchises. We got Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Child's Play, and I think we'll do Scream too. So those 5 franchises. A little backstory on myself. I've watched horror movies since I was 7 or 8 years old. I've always just loved them, and it's a situation where at the young age, I watched these movies. No one else really was. Halloween is definitely probably my favorite. So I figured Halloween 1. Let's start out with the franchise that I've always enjoyed the most. Again, Michael Myers is my guy, if you can't tell by this shirt. A little backstory on the film. This film is a film that has it's a real simplistic story. They take a real simplistic approach with this film. This is a film that was only given a $300,000 budget, which is not much. This is a film that had so many different things going against it. There were so many reasons why this film shouldn't have been a success. And not only did it become a success, but it became one of the greatest success stories in the horror genre. It's considered by many to be one of the greatest slashers of all time. And on top of what I already said, another thing going against it was most of the people that were supposed to be cast in certain roles in this movie, those actors turned down, participating in this project in large part due to the low budget. Also, you throw in the fact that they were going to be compensated, they weren't going to be compensated, very, very highly, just due to the fact that this wasn't supposed to be some big, big hit. It was just, let's get a Halloween movie out there, and we'll, just do your best. So this movie, obviously, like I said, had everything going against it. It was not supposed to be what it ultimately became. And I got to say, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite. I'm going to get into a few things, though. We're going to get some pros and some cons. And I'm going to start with a few cons. Yes, I do believe there are some with this movie. Now, I understand this movie has a gigantic following. I am obviously a little worried. I might get some backlash here, but I am going to tell you a couple things that I do think could have been better about this film. Now, I don't even think they're really bad things. I don't think there's anything really bad about this film. There's just a couple things that I don't think have aged particularly well. So I don't think it's a situation where these things are really bad, because I think at the time when this movie came out, they were fine. It's just over time they haven't aged super well. And one of the biggest negatives I have with this movie, I'll give you a hint, there's only 2. One of them is the kills. In this movie, there is only 5 kills, so there isn't many to talk about. But the 5 kills are Judith Myers. There is a mechanic who we actually don't even see killed. He's just, you see his body, and it's only half his body. Then you got Annie Brackett, you got Bob Sims, and you got Linda. So you got those 5. They're all killed. The Judith kill, which it is obviously a historic kill. It's an important kill for the story of the franchise, and it's definitely one of the more memorable just because of the impact it has. But in terms of how it looks on screen, it's not very good. The stabbing from Michael looks pretty ridiculous. And so that kill's not great on screen. The mechanic kill, that's a nothing kill because you don't even see it. The Annie kill, she does get her throat slit, which you would think would be good, but it's in the car. You don't really see it. There's no blood. So that kill's not great. The Linda kill, she just gets choked with like a phone cord. So that's not a great kill. That kill's horrible, in fact. And then you got the Bob kill, which is the one bright spot in terms of the kills in this movie. He's down in the kitchen area, and Michael Myers comes running out of the closet, and jumps out of the closet and stabs him. I think he impales him through like the chest, and he's up on the wall, like he's impaled through the wall. And Michael's just standing right in front of him looking. And one of my favorite things Michael Myers does in this episode, the actor Nick Castle who plays him, when he tilts his head, just kind of tilts his head each direction, and it's like that childlike curiosity coming back to him. And it's like he's sitting there thinking to himself, like, man, I just fucked that guy up. Like, this was fucking awesome. I thought that was a really good moment from Michael Myers. So the kills is definitely, I think, a negative to this movie. The other negative and the last negative is the cast. I think when you look at this cast, it's kind of top heavy. You have Donald Pleasence, who plays Dr. Loomis, and you have Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays Laurie Strode, and those 2 I do like. Now, I'll get in first to Dr. Loomis. I think he's a great character in this movie. I think he's the best actor and the best character and part of this movie. I think he's phenomenal. Some of his lines, like, his line about the devil's eyes and his line about Death has come to your little town, Sheriff. Like, those are two memorable lines. Then you got Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who this was her first big break. You know, she was only, I think, 19 or 20 years old at the time. And I'm probably going to get some backlash for this as well, but I do find her to be just a tad bit bland and a tad bit boring. Now, I do like her, and obviously she did a pretty good job because, you know, she's still doing Halloween films 40 years later, but I do find her just to be a tad vanilla. The way I've always looked at it is you have the group of three girls. You have Annie, Linda, and Laurie, and, you know, Linda and Annie are two characters who I don't like. They're, you know, both the typical high school girls where they're you know, they just want to go fuck their boyfriends. They're ditching their responsibilities. They're supposed to be babysitting their kids. They ditch them, have Laurie watch them because they just want to go fuck, basically. Laurie's kind of the traditional, like, virgin character. She cares about her studies. She's all upset earlier in the movie about forgetting her chemistry book at school. She's good with the kids. She's very responsible. So it's like she's the good babysitter girl. So you have these other two girls that are just want to go fuck their boyfriends, and you got this innocent, sweet girl. So it's like, I think in a lot of ways I like Laurie because she just happens to be the best of the three girls that were thrown, you know, that are thrown our way. And again, I don't think Laurie is bad. I think clearly she does a good job in this movie. So I'm kind of nitpicking. She does do a good job. I just find her to be a tad vanilla and a tad boring. But, and she's not my favorite final girl by any standpoint. But again, she does a good job. I just don't think she's amazing. But like I said, I don't like the other two girls. Bob, he doesn't do much. So the cast is really top-heavy with Loomis and Laurie Strode. The third character that I do like is Lee Brackett, the sheriff, Annie's father. I do like him, but he's not in the film enough. You know, he's kind of invisible at points. And you think about the ending, the final, you know, the big showdown, the final 20-25 minutes, he's not there at all. He's virtually irrelevant at that point. So if he had been given a bigger role and had more involvement in the film, I think he would have definitely been my third favorite and would have added another real strong cast, you know, member. But yeah, all in all, I think the cast and the kills just were slightly negatives in this movie. If I had to pick something, those were the two things I found to be the worst. I think those are the two things that haven't aged as well, particularly the kills. But that's all for the cons. Now to the pros, and there's a lot of them. We're going to start out with the plot. The plot of this movie, I mean, it's, like I said, it's a very simplistic thing, but it's phenomenal. The idea of, like, you just have this man who we don't really know if is he human, is he supernatural, and the whole movie, because a lot of the movie you're spent with him, and it's just like you're lingering with Michael for times throughout this movie. And I know personally, I found myself asking throughout many times in this movie, is he, like, which way does the scale tip? Is he more human or is he more supernatural? And you don't really know. All you know is that he's evil. And the movie is so simplistic, but it's so well done. I love it. Another really positive thing about this movie is the score. And I should have mentioned that first because that is, in my mind, one of, if not the biggest positive, one of the biggest positives. It's the most recognizable score in horror, in one of the most recognizable scores in the whole world. It's an amazing song. I don't just listen to it at Halloween time. I listen to it on YouTube throughout the entirety of the year. Halloween, when kids walk up my driveway trick-or-treating, I'll play it on the piano. And I'm not a guy who knows how to play the piano, but I know how to play that. It's an amazing score. John Carpenter, it's a work of magic. It's a work of art. The fact that it just fits the movie so perfectly. People that don't even like horror, if they hear that song, that tune, you know it's fucking Michael Myers, baby. You know it. It's a great theme, a great score, unbelievable job by John Carpenter. And then also the ending is amazing, but I'll get to that. And now into some of the characters, a couple of them that I want to discuss. Again, Dr. Loomis, who I've discussed a little bit. I want to say a little more about him. And in terms of the fact that, as I've said, he is my favorite part of this movie. He's my favorite actor in this movie. I think his scenes are the best part of this movie. But the one thing you could say about Dr. Loomis is, I think in a lesser movie, or like a lot of the horror movies nowadays, I think his character would be the most annoying and insufferable part of the movie. When he's on the screen, I think it would be horrible. But in this movie, he's the best part. You know, I think this is a very scary movie. People think of it, though, and they think, well, Michael's the reason it's scary. And it's like, in a lot of ways, yes, that's accurate. But really, when you think about it, Dr. Loomis is the one that makes this movie scary. Because he's the one that tells us why we should be afraid of Michael Myers. Michael Myers is a blank, it's just an emotionless guy, a blank mask, with there's no emotion. The only reason we're afraid of him, the reason we are afraid of him is because of Dr. Loomis and how he presents him and what he tells us and lets us know about him. And, when you think about Dr. Loomis, I mean, this is a guy who, he's not a cop. He's not a detective. He really has no reason to be in the position he's in. He's there strictly to protect us. And his goal in life, because obviously he's worked with Michael Myers since he was 6 years old, his goal in life is to make sure Michael Myers does not hurt any more people. And that he's dedicated his life to that. And I find his moments, his scenes in this movie to be the most memorable. I wish I could get a shirt with Loomis's face on it and just have some of his quotes just across my shirt, because they're just ridiculously memorable. And again, they're my favorite parts of the movie. Then you got, I already talked about Laurie Strode, so I'm not going to get back into her. But the next character I want to talk about, a character I really haven't talked about yet, other than a couple, I've mentioned him, but I really haven't went into detail about him, and that's Michael Myers himself, played by Nick Castle, who does a fantastic job. What I love about this version of Michael Myers, opposed to later seasons, is particularly in later seasons, he comes across as very robotic, which makes him come across as not human. I'm looking at you, Halloween 2. But in this one, you don't know. You're never quite sure. Is he human or is he supernatural? And throughout the entire of the movie, you're like, you don't know which way the scale tips. You're not 100% sure. And there's moments where it's like, he gets shot 6 times. He gets stabbed in the eye with a coat hanger, and he doesn't go down. He doesn't go down. He doesn't go down. So you're thinking to yourself, like, this guy has to be superhuman. But you don't really know. And I think one of the other really good things about this movie, to step away from Michael, one of the other really great things about this movie is the fact that it's one of the only movies that can pull this off too. It's scary throughout. And when you think about the setting of this movie, I mean, a majority of this movie is during the day, on a sunny day. It's not rainy and thunderstorms. It's sunny in a suburb with a bunch of houses around, but yet it's somehow unbelievably scary. It's bone-chilling at times. Like, there's a scene where Laurie Strode, she gets done, going on the walk with the other girls, coming home from school, and she goes up into the upstairs of her house, looks out the window, and she sees Michael Myers looking back at her, and you just see the pale, emotionless, blank canvas of a mask staring back at her with like some bed sheets around him, and it's just unbelievably terrifying. And it's the middle of the day in a suburb neighborhood. Like, it's amazing that this movie was able to pull that off, because most movies, if not almost no other movies, can pull that off. This movie doesn't need a ton of blood, a ton of guts, a ton of gore. It doesn't need it to be constantly dark. It can make you scared. It can make you tense up. It can make your stomach drop in the middle of the day. And that's, I think, a special thing about this movie. The last thing I want to get into now is the ending, which is an amazing ending, one of the best in this franchise. And, they have the end, the chase scene. Laurie obviously discovers that all her friends have been murdered. You get the iconic scene where she backs up and she's like right where the closet door is, and you see Michael's mask just slowly, he goes from dark in the closet. All of a sudden, you just see Michael's mask appear from the darkness. Scene is amazing. Ultimately, he chases her over to the other house. A couple times it looks like she has killed him, but of course not. At one point, she's sitting in the doorway, and Michael's down. He's been stabbed, and all of a sudden, you just see him rise up like the fucking Undertaker. He attacks her from behind, but Dr. Loomis saves the day, comes in and shoots Michael. I believe it's 6 times in the chest. Michael goes flying out over the balcony. You get the iconic line where Laurie looks at Dr. Loomis and says, was that the boogeyman? And Dr. Loomis says, a matter of fact, that was. And that's just an iconic line. Dr. Loomis walks over to the balcony, looks over, and Michael's gone. And the score hits, that amazing fucking score hits, and the movie ends. And I gotta say, this is one of those, it's like a franchise too, where I'm happy that they made sequels, even though some of them aren't great. I love Michael Myers. I want as much of him in my life as possible. But in a lot of ways, this could have been a one-off, and it would have been fine with. I think most people would have been fine with that, and I would have been fine with that. Michael getting away, the ending was amazing. This movie didn't necessarily need sequels. It's just a situation where Michael was so popular, they wanted to jump on the opportunity to make more money. And again, I'm happy they did it, But this movie would have been completely fine in my eyes as a one-off. It was an unbelievable film, great in so many ways. Again, it's amazing how they were able to make this film so iconic and legendary with a $300,000 budget. You got actors, constant actors not wanting to take the roles, so you're having to get secondary and get second actors, third actors, fourth actors. You're having to drop down the list to pick the actors to fill these roles. And they pulled it off. And they not only made a great movie, but they made an iconic and legendary movie, a movie that's rewatchable, endlessly rewatchable. And it's one that I may go watch here in a few minutes because I want to watch it again. It's so fucking good. Again, Dr. Loomis is amazing in this episode. I give him the MVP, I think, of the movie. I said episode, what the fuck? Of the movie. I think I'd give the movie a 9 out of 10 review. Or I wouldn't go 9.5. We're going to go 9.5 out of 10. Excellent film. But yeah, guys, this was just the first. I know as I do these, I'll get better at it. This is the very first one I've done. Halloween 1978. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I'll be back. I'm not sure if I'm going to do Halloween 2 next or if I'll jump into another franchise, but I'm going to be back with another horror review here in the next day or two. Thanks for checking in, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you think it's one of the most iconic? Is it one of the best slash movies of all time? Do you think it's a little overrated? Because some people do. I don't. 9.5 out of 10. Thanks, guys. I'm out.